Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Exporting U.S. Pet Care Products to China webinar. I am Macy Duplessis. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at SESTA, and we have with us our lovely panelists. We have Ian Chen from SMH International. Those are our in-country consultants over in China, and they will be giving a presentation today that will be so informative, and we hope you guys really enjoy everything. We also have with us Dana Waters, as well as Stephanie Pan, and we also have Roger Zhang with us as well. So we will go ahead and we'll start off and have Ian give his presentation, and then we'll go into some more like details, and we will also have a Q&A at the end. So if you guys have any questions, you guys are welcome to pop it into the Q&A box and or into the chat, whichever is convenient for you. And we will make sure that we answer those questions at some point in this after the presentation. Also, this webinar is being recorded, and I will upload it to the back office, and we will send it out to people so you guys have a way to access the a recording of the webinar as well as the presentation that's being presented during it. So I will send out that email around lunch today, so just be on the lookout for that. So, but if that's it, you guys can go ahead and thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Macy, and appreciate the opportunity to, for us as in-country consultants to talk about a topic that's been really very interesting for the past few years, the development of everything, which is the pet product market in China. So appreciate SESTA for this platform. And before we start with our presentation, appreciate the support from the USDA, Foreign Agriculture Service from Shanghai. Unfortunately, they are unable to speak at this webinar, but the ATO Shanghai Director, Alex Blamberg, appreciate him, recording a video for this webinar specifically. And before we begin with anything, I would like to start with that video by Dr. Alex Blamberg.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Blamberg, Director of the USDA Agricultural Trade Office in Shanghai. I want to thank Roger Zhang and his team from SMH and SUSTA for organizing this webinar and for giving U.S. companies the chance to learn more about the pet food market in China. Our office is part of the Foreign Agricultural Service under the U.S. Department of Agriculture. In China, we have 4 regional offices in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenyang. Our mission is to promote high-quality U.S. agricultural exports to overseas markets. Demand for pet food is growing in China, with the pet population expected to double by 2035. Increasing awareness of pet health and wellness have created strong demand for premium pet food and related products. The United States is well positioned to meet this demand. U.S. pet food exports to China reached a record high $300 million in 2024, and China continues to be a top 3 market for U.S. pet food. The USA Pavilion at Pet Fair Asia in August represents a key opportunity for U.S. companies to promote their products to Chinese consumers. In 2025, the show attracted over 500,000 visitors. Companies in the USA Pavilion reported over $6 million in projected sales. For 3 years in a row, our Agricultural Trade Office team has been on the ground at Pet Fair Asia, helping to facilitate connections between U.S. companies and local buyers. We expect to do the same this year. I hope that you all take advantage of today's webinar to learn more about the market and the ways that USDA and SUSTA can help support your business. Please never hesitate to reach out to us if we can be of assistance. Thank you very much, and I wish you all an informative and productive session.
And there's another special guest that I would really appreciate your support, and that is Dana from the Pet Food Institute. So, Dana, we really appreciate you joining us today at this webinar. And if you'd like have a few words for our audience, that would be fantastic.
Thank you guys for having me, for inviting me. It's really good to be with everybody this morning. My name is Dana Waters. I'm the Director of International Affairs at Pet Food Institute. I'm not the only person who works on international affairs, though, at PFI. I have two other colleagues who greatly um, help and participate in our international activities. Nat Davies, who kind of runs our programs, including all of our USDA programs that we're cooperators of, and Betsy Flores, who is our Senior Vice President of Public Policy. But for today, you have me, and I assist with the running of our programs as well. But I just wanted to quickly come on and speak to you guys about how PFI can kind of work together with programs run by organizations like SUSTA and how we can kind of complement each other in our work. Because PFI also has kind of a long running program in China as well through the market access program. And that kind of allows us to have a similar relationship and presence in China like SUSTA has with SMH. So it's a really great program that we've got there. Um, and it kind of allows us to be active across multiple regions in China, um, not just in the larger cities, but in kind of the second and third tier cities as well, reaching more folks across the country. And within that kind of map supported framework, PFI really focuses obviously specifically on pet food and treats. And while we don't run a branded program like SUSTA does, we have a generic program. We're really able to fill in sector-specific gaps at sector-specific activities like veterinary shows, pet food trade shows, so you can really get into kind of the more technical um, aspects of pet food and nutrition and kind of safety and quality. You can really get into the weeds there. Um, and that's really the role that we play is helping ensure that, when US products enter into market, they're not just available, but also understood and trusted by the people who are going to matter most, which is obviously the pet parent who is purchasing the pet food and treats. So that's really a 30,000-foot view for you. But if you have more questions about our program or how we can work with your branded program through SUSTA, um, please give me a shout at the end of the webinar. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Dana. And we hope, through this webinar, we can get the ball rolling and start getting SUSTA's participation, companies' participation in some of our hopefully future pet events in China. So, all right. So that's me. My name is Ian. I work for SMH International, which I'll quickly introduce a little bit about what we do. So we are proud to have been the in-country consultant for SUSTA for around 20 years now. So what we do is help SUSTA companies access the Chinese market, supporting them at trade shows and trade missions, educate exporters on market trends, consumer behavior, policy changes through our virtual consultation programs. And obviously, this webinar is about China, but our footprint spans across the entire Greater China region. So mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau. And besides that, we also cover Southeast Asia on certain commodities as well. So yeah, for this webinar, we're very excited to introduce an industry that we've been seeing tremendous growth, especially over the past 5 years for the United States, which is well, the title is a little misleading for this webinar, but it covers pet products in general. So, all right, let's kick things off with the big picture. If we look at the first chart on the left, the first thing that should jump out is just how fast the pet market has grown in China. And what you're looking at here is one of the fastest growing consumer sectors within the country. So starting from the very bottom back in 2010, the market was just a little over $700 million US dollars. And fast forward 14 years, and we're looking at roughly a $41 billion market in 2024, projected to hit 43 billion in 2005 and potentially $56 billion by 2028. And that's not normal growth. It's explosive growth. And here's the more important detail. Growth is starting to stabilize with a growth rate of 5.2% for cat market and around 3.2% for dogs. The dog market is still slightly larger at 160 billion RMB, which is around $22 billion, versus 152 billion RMB, which is 21 billion. So the dog market is slightly larger, but as we'll get into it later, cats are rising with feline quickness. So the takeaway here is pretty simple. China is no longer an emerging market for pet products. It is now a large, mature, and still expanding market with lots of opportunities. So what's driving this growth? So we can here's a few graphs we can see. Starting from the left, we can see that China's per capita income has been growing consistently over the past several years. So consumers now have more disposable income than before. And this is not just happening in big cities either. It is happening in smaller, emerging regional markets as well. I know it might be hard to see right now, but in the graph in the middle, the dark spots, the dark red spots represent what is called the tier one cities, which are the most developed and richest city of them all. And there are currently four of them. And as the color grow lighter, they represent smaller markets. But even though they're small, Lur, that is where all the fastest growth is happening right now. And there's a growing number of these cities today. And then, well, China is also having I wouldn't say crisis, but issue with population. So China is seeing fewer children born, more singles, later marriages, and also a rapidly aging population. And when you put all those together, pets are becoming increasingly, they're increasingly filling the role of companionship and also for emotional support. So in the US, pets are often part of the family. In China, increasingly, pets are playing the same role. They're also replacing, in addition to that, traditional family roles, especially for younger urban consumers. And that emotional shift is what's really driving spending, not just the increasing income. And now let's talk about the structure of the market just for a little bit. So if you look at the left, those two lines, the blue line represents dog, the orange line represents cat. So as you can see, the dog population is growing at a relatively flat but stable rate. And cats, on the other hand, is growing at a much faster pace, especially since, if you can tell, by the year during COVID. And besides COVID, why is cat becoming a growing selection for pet parents? That's because a lot of Chinese consumers, they live in apartments, small apartments, usually around 500 to 600 square feet and with the whole family together. So cats are easier to manage because they need less space, they need less maintenance. And unlike dogs, when the owners can travel without having to put them in a doggy daycare. So that makes them more suitable for the urban life, the urban lifestyle. At the same time, spending on dogs is becoming more premium. So dog owners, they actually spent more per pet and exactly around 3,000 RMB, which is around $400 versus about 2,000 RMB for cats, roughly about, I think that's $250. So in total pet ownership of dogs and cats, it's already surpassed 120 million. And besides that, there's also a growth in the ownership of small and exotic pets like fishes, reptiles, and rodents, I guess. So here's the key takeaway. So cat ownership and spending are seeing faster volume growth, and we're seeing higher spending per pet for dogs. And if you combine both, you get a very balanced market opportunity. So here's a bit of a profile or portrait of the typical Chinese pet owner. And this is important if you're thinking about marketing your products in China. So the first thing here is age. Almost 70% of pet owners in China, they're under 40 years old. So that's what we call post 90s and post 2000s. People born in the 90s, 1990s, and the 2000s. These are people who grew up with smartphones, social media, e-commerce. So they're very connected and very well informed. Post 80s, like myself, may not be as reliant on social media for information and maybe spend more time deep diving on the internet to do research. And this group of consumers, pet owners, they make up a quarter of the market. And then you have the rest at 6.5% who are older consumers who make up just yeah, make up 6.5%, but still it's hardly a small number when you factor in the total population of China, which is 1.3 billion. And then you have a huge portion of the pet owners being female. And maybe even more so than men, they rely on social media and also influencers for product recommendations and information. And then 55% of Chinese pet owners, they consider their pets as their children, and only a small percentage treat them as just pets, which is a big shift from just over 10 years ago. And here's the practical implication. People are not just buying pet food, they are buying emotional connection, identity, and lifestyle. And that is why marketing matters so much in China. Now let's break down how Chinese owners spend on their pets. And this chart has a few details that are easy to miss. So the first thing, over 50% of spending is still on food, pet food, and snacks, which is no surprise. But if you look at the notes below, so snacks are purchased more frequently than staple food. That's important because it means snacks are not just an add-on, they're actually a high frequency category, which is great for a brand to build their presence in the market. And looking at the behavioral differences, so dog owners prefer interactive and dental treats, and cat owners focus maybe more on nutrition and supplements. So if you're planning to enter the market, you can't just say pet treats. You need to be very specific about function, the target animal, and also the usage occasion. So this slide has a lot of things going on. So let me try and simplify this. So the chart on the left side is for dogs, right side for cats. And if you look at the bars, especially from um, changes from 2024 to 2025, blue bar for 2024, orange bar for 25. You notice that fresh food is jumping significantly. And freeze dried and baked food are also increasing. And for traditional extruded food is growing relatively flat. So what's happening here is that Chinese consumers are upgrading. They're moving away from highly processed kibbles and towards fresh, minimally processed and functional products. And also here's something important. So in China, just like anywhere else in the world, but more so in China, food safety is a huge concern. So fresh and high quality ingredients labels they're not just trends. They're about trust from consumers and the pet parents themselves. So that's why imported products, especially from the United States, have a very, very strong, robust advantage, even over other overseas export countries. So let's talk a little bit about competition. So Chinese brands now control about 67% of total market share, and they're getting stronger with improving technology, stronger supply chain, and also better innovation, especially in the mid-range products. Being local also means that these brands are able to quickly develop and launch products that closely follow the latest consumer trends versus with overseas international brands that might take them longer. They're not, you know, as updated as these local brands when it comes to being able to develop these products and launch them as quickly as possible before certain trends fade. And we're also seeing a growing focus on quality by emerging local brands. They're carving out their own share in the market. And then you also have the cross industry players entering the pet market as well, with collaborations between non pet brands entering that space, whether it is AI powered appliances for pets, pet clothing, or pet care and hygiene products. There's a growing sense of collaborative efforts between non traditional pet brands and also with pet brands. Excuse me. So all this might sound intimidating if you're new to the market or considering exporting to the Chinese market. But do know that imported brands, particularly from the US, like I just mentioned, they dominate the premium segment. And that premium segment is where growth and also margins are the strongest. So when it comes to the United States, we're just not just competing with anyone and everyone. We're competing against a very specific tier of the market. In terms of imports, the United States remain the leading supplier of pet food to China. And that number has really grown since 2021, as you can see. So that tells you, I guess, two things. A, the US already has a very strong brand recognition, and that the Chinese consumer, the Chinese pet parents, trust pet products from the United States. So within that competitive landscape with other countries, can also notice that Thailand and New Zealand, their exports to China have also been growing in the past few years as well. But, you know, based on what we can see here, the United States by far, dominates that landscape. So even competition is increasing, especially from countries with strong agricultural background is also and also with competitive pricing. So we're looking at Canada and Italy as well as some part of the top five exporting countries to China. So when it comes to the US, positioning will matter more going forward. So looking specifically at the top 10 US ag exports to China in 2025, you can see on the left side of the table, pet food is the ninth largest export commodity to the country. And China is also the third largest not supplier, sorry, importer of US pet food with about $245 million in value, only behind Canada and Mexico. And let's not overlook the fact that some Chinese pet food manufacturers also import raw ingredients like meat or seafood or feed from the US for their own brands as well. So that's not, you know, let's not overlook that part. And while pet food is just one part of total ag exports, it is a high growth, high margin category. And if we look at the chart trends was in terms of pet food export to China, before China opened market access to the United States, specific, specifically for their pet food around 2020, there were hardly any exports. But since the seeds of the quality of U.S. pet food was long established before market access was even open, and that's through the Phase One agreement, what we see is an explosive growth starting from 2022. And also the number of U.S. pet manufacturers that were whitelisted by the Chinese government also exploded. So what we're seeing was a very, very, very strong growth even during COVID period. But growth is not perfectly linear. And that is a reflection of the effects of policy changes in China, obviously the tariffs, and also post-COVID market adjustments. This is a market that requires close attention and active management. And but the long-term outlook is still very much positive for the United States. So, how are products reaching consumers in China? Let's start with online. So, big chunk of this chart on the left are dominated by e-commerce platforms. So, starting with Tmall.com at 35%, and other platforms, major platforms like Taobao, JD.com, Douyin, they all are significant players in the market. So Chinese consumers love to shop online, and it absolutely shows. So besides the traditional online channels, there's the emergence of what's called the instant retail platforms. So these are some of the fastest growing channels, which are similar to DoorDash or Uber Eats in the States. So these platforms, they offer on-demand food delivery service, and now they're expanding to delivering groceries, which includes pet products. And they deliver these products, these orders, within usually 30 minutes or an hour of ordering. So a lot of Chinese pet owners, they're using these apps to order food and treats for their pets. And then there's also the what is called cross-border e-commerce. And this is key for new entrants to the market because it doesn't require products to be shipped to China into a warehouse and then it gets distributed when your products are sold. It doesn't require an import license along with simpler labeling requirements and also reduced tariffs. So many brands from the US would start with cross border e commerce to test out the market before actually going fully local with partnership with local distributors and importers. And then here's something relatively unique to China, but I guess it's changing a little bit around the world as well. But social e-commerce, social commerce, which is huge in China right now. So people don't just search, they discover products through short videos, they discover them through influencers, live streams. So platforms like RedNote and Douyin, which is the Chinese version of TikTok. And thanks to the international version, it is now more common for people around the globe to also search and buy products nowadays. But with China, the way it works, and also the sophistication of the whole ecosystem of social commerce is still very much different from what you have in the United States and to the rest of the world. Still, with around 94,000 pet stores across the country, offline retail is still very much relevant. And when you add sales from pet hospitals and vet clinics, offline still represents roughly 20% of total sales of pet products in China. So, with the market environment aside, here's a little bit of technical things about exporting to China. Uh, it's complicated, so I won't go through every step here, but I do want to highlight that exporting to China won't be easy because it's a complicated process. So there are multiple layers, starting with facility registration, product registration, product registration, labeling compliance, and also custom clearance. And if we look at the labeling section, this is where a lot of companies overseas in general find it challenging because everything must be translated into Chinese, and you have to have professionals who is experienced and who's has the technical know-hows who can accurately translate the ingredients, the additives, the usage instructions, etc. on the original label. And they have to translate that into English that complies with the requirements of the Chinese government. And this process, along with the facility registration, product registration, can be very time consuming. So patience is absolutely required. Um, Having the required information on everything that's required is critical, and planning ahead, giving yourself enough time in between all of the process and working with a Chinese partner is going to be critical as well. So if you're planning to thinking of entering China, this is where having a trusted local partner becomes very important. In tariffs, tariffs are another really important factor, as you all know. So depending on which of your product is classified within the Chinese HS code for pet products, especially pet food, um, total tariffs can go up to from 24% to 50%. And this could be intimidating to a lot of Chinese buyers, not just the exporters themselves, but clearly, despite the increased cost, the United States still stands head and shoulders above every other competitors from overseas, as we can see from the export statistics earlier. And but there is also a great thing that is available to Chinese importers right now, and that is the tariff exclusion process. And that is where things come into play for a lot of Chinese importers because this exclusion, which is available to the importers only, um, and as of today, it is extended through the end of 2026. The process allows them to apply for a waiver for the tariffs that is imposed on U.S. exports. So that helps the importers reduce cost significantly. And this is a bit of a checklist that I have of where the market we think is going. So the first thing would be sustainability. Pet owners prefer eco-friendly products and also packaging. And then you have aging pets, and this is the aging pet population is driving demand for a lot of health focused products. So, for example, heart products for dogs and liver and kidney support for cats. And also, you have specifically for dog products, and we're seeing freeze dried snacks, cartilage treats, meat floss, dental sticks, air dried meats, meat wrap chews as some of the uh, more trending products that we're seeing right now. And for cats, we have dry freeze donuts, cat cat grass sticks, interactive pocket treats, cakes, yogurt based snacks, and freeze dried lollipops for cats. And prescription pet food sales are rising as well. So we're seeing top sellers like that support urinary health, digestive health, and also low fat diets. And we're also seeing growth in small exotic pets, like we mentioned earlier. And this creates a lot of niche opportunities for hay and feed products. So overall, the Chinese pet product market is moving towards, I believe, be what you call the higher quality, specialization, and lifestyle integration. So if you take away one message from today's webinar, I guess it would be China's pet market is no longer about basic needs, but it's all about the quality of life. So consumers in China, pet owners in China want better nutrition, safer products, and more emotional connection. And US pet products are which are trusted and preferred. They're well positioned because they already stand for all of those. So quality, safety, and trust. But success does require localization. So copying and pasting whatever works, whatever strategy that works in the US or other international market might not work in China. So working with a market consultant, participating in trade shows and trade missions offer a great pathway for you to learn about the nuances of the Chinese market, meet local buyers who are always looking for products that stand out from the rest of the competition. So, as I mentioned, pet shows are a great platform for would-be exporters or companies that are interested in expanding their international sales to China. Um, there are a few trade shows, industry trade shows that are perfect for that purpose. So earlier in the beginning, we had um, Director Alex Blamberg from the ATO Shanghai who mentioned Pet Fair Asia. And just for a quick introduction of Pet Fair Asia, as well as other potential trade shows that we have here in China for pet products, I will hand it over to my colleague, Stephanie, who will introduce some of the trade shows that we have.
Thank you, Ian. Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie from SMH International and also is a pet owner. Ian has just given a great overview of the China pet market, and I'd like to share a few key pet trade shows in China that can help you better approach the Chinese market. Actually, among these trade shows, I'd especially like to highlight the Pet Fair Asia Ian just mentioned. Honestly, it's one of the most energetic and exciting shows I've ever been part of. When we visited the USA pavilion, the booths were busy almost the entire times. There was a consistent flow of visitors, buyers, and the people who stopping by to ask questions and explore the products. Actually, if you were on site, you could really feel how strong the demand in China's pet market. And actually, it's not just only about the traffic. I've already listed several numbers. We can saw the real business happening on site. The USDA reported the US companies generated over 21,000 in US dollar in direct sales during the trade show, and more importantly, around 6 million US dollar in projected sales afterwards. So that really shows how effective this the platform and the trade show is. So we've already prepared a very short video to share with you, give you a feeling of how it looks like being of this show. Ian, please help me to play the video. Okay, so actually through the video, I think everyone can really feel the high level of the engagement at the show. One of the key reasons this event was so successful is the strong support we received from the Shanghai ATO. Actually, you can see in the video, the US pet food cooking demonstration was a very creative idea. So when I first hear about this idea in the ATO office, we are really excited about that. So it helps the buyers and consumers truly understand the US pet food ingredients and how they can be used in a protective way. And during the networking reception, there were over 120 industry professionals in the room. This created a great opportunity for our exhibitors to directly discuss partnerships, sourcing, and further collaboration on the spot. So actually, it's not just a display show. It's also highly interactive, very business driven, and things move fast during the whole show. Yeah. And in addition to the Pet Fair Asia, there are also several other important pet shows in China, and I'd like to highlight briefly. The first one is the China International Pet Show (CIPS), which takes place in Guangzhou in South China every November. Compared to the Pet Fair Asia, CIPS is more trade focused, with a strong emphasis on international buyers and export-oriented business. So if you are looking to connect with global distributors, this is also a very good platform. And another one is the One Pet Show, TOPS in Shanghai. This show is more lifestyle and consumer driven, with a strong focus on branding, retail trends, and younger pet owners. It's a great place to see new concept, innovation products, and how brands engage directly with consumers. So overall, each show they have their own position and focus. It depends on what you are looking for, and you can choose that one that fits for your goals best. Okay, thank you, Ian.
Sorry, I think I just
No
logged
problem.
out for some reason.
Yeah.
Gonna put it back on. All right. So yeah, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Macy and Sesta, for putting together this webinar. And I hope we all have some pretty informative insight that you guys were able to receive through this. So for the next few minutes, if there's anyone who has any questions, we'll be happy to take them.
Thank you guys so much. We greatly appreciate it. It was a lovely, very informational presentation. So, like Ian said, this is now the time. If anybody has any questions, you guys can pop it into the Q&A box or into the chat, whichever works for you. But in the meantime, is there anything else that, oh, we have a question? Someone asked for Dana and Ian's email. That information.
I
So
can share
for,
it in the chat box.
okay,
Yeah, I can do that.
okay, yes, I don't know if you guys find it. So they will go ahead and share that. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add or include um, while we wait for anybody to type any questions that they may have? Oh, somebody said, I wanted to ask for the product label translation. Is there a link to view more details on requirements?
Yeah, sure. So the USDA has a gain report on all of the labeling requirements for products exporting to China. So I can share that with Macy, and Macy, you could probably maybe share it
Yes.
with.
Yes, I can include that in the follow-up email that I will send this afternoon. I can include the game report in the email as well for you guys. Someone
Thank you.
said how many USA participants are at each show?
So honestly, I've never been to the CIPS before. I've been to the one um, a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago. So I don't absolutely don't remember, and it was during COVID as well. So it's hard to use that as a baseline for what's going to happen in this year or next year. But as far as the three shows that Stephanie were speaking about, Pet Fair Asia, absolutely, there's a very strong presence of U.S. companies. I think, what was it? Let me run it back.
It's the eight
There were
company
eight
under the
companies and
USA permit.
four, yeah. So eight companies and four cooperators. And the USDA has a presence, has a booth presence at the show as well. So we got the ATO directors, the consul general, and some of the industry members within the pet food industry who visit the USA Pavilion during that show. So, I mean, if it's up to me, of the three of the trade shows that we introduced, Pet Fair Asia is definitely the largest platform.
If anybody has any other questions.
Back to the earlier question about the product label translation
Yes.
requirements, there's another game report that ATO put out that's also really helpful for facility registration and product registration.
Mhm.
That game report was really great, so I can send that to you as well, Macy.
Yes. And I will include everything in the email that's sent later this afternoon to everyone that attended. Yes.
And I don't know if you were able to catch it in the video here, but PFI also has a booth at Pet Fair Asia, so our representatives attend. Staff hasn't been able to attend in recent years because it always falls at the same time as Super Zoo, which is the other really huge pet food show in the States. But this year it does not. So we're going to try and get PFI staff to attend that as well, um, because it is such a good kind of platform and opportunity to get visibility in the market. So maybe you'll see us there.
Great.
So someone asked, can Dana speak more about the market access program?
Yeah, so USDA offers grant money for cooperators um, to do marketing activities for their specific products or commodities in foreign markets. And PFI has a program operating in China right now for, oh man, I don't know how many years now, um, before COVID for sure. But we don't run a branded program like Susta does, so we are a bit more hemmed in terms of how we promote products. We can promote U.S. pet food generally, but that doesn't mean that you can't, access our marketing assistance in country. So we're able to get presence at international shows like at Pet for Asia and some of the other shows in markets like China. Um, and it won't be just your product in the booth. It will be you and probably two or three other companies, but it's still a really good opportunity to get face time with potential buyers and get access to the consumer insights. So that's kind of how our market access program operates.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody has any last questions? They're welcome to pop them into the chat. But we will be finishing up soon. Don't think there's any more for right now. But I just wanted to thank everyone for hopping on to this webinar. We hope it was very informative and that this has definitely piqued your interest in wanting to possibly do some exporting and possibly signing up and registering for some events. So again, I will send an email later this afternoon with everything that was discussed here as well as the game reports. So be on the lookout for that. We want to thank our SMH International and Country Consultants, Ian, Stephanie, Roger. Thank you guys so much for hopping on and for putting this together. We greatly appreciate this, and we know our companies do as well. If you guys have any questions or concerns or need anything, feel free to contact me. My name again is Macy Duplessis, and thank you guys so much for joining. Have a great one.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.